Hello everybody, welcome to Awesome Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't that already, and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 100k subscribers, so that subscription would be much appreciated. As you can tell, I changed out the microphone. I heard all of your complaints about it. I got a pop filter, and I will be more studious going forward about actually making sure that I have good etiquette with it. Until then, I'm going to use this because I'm waiting for our overlords at Amazon to send me the pop filter. Anywho, that said, today's video I want to talk about Giannis and the struggles that he has been having recently, because if you are not aware, because this is something that's weirdly gone under talked about, Giannis had a 9-point game against the Charlotte Hornets and very recently a 7-point game against the Atlanta Hawks. And even in the game that he played in between those two games, he still shot 6 for 15 from the field and only put up 22 points, which for Giannis is a pretty low scoring output, but also not something that you would entirely freak out about. But as of right now, over the last 3 games, 13 points, 5 assists, 11 rebounds, and he is shooting 34% from the field, 20% from 3, and 55% from the free throw line. That's not good. I don't know if you were aware. It's not ideal. So let me talk about these two games individually first. The Charlotte game ended up, I would say, being a game that you would criticize him less for, because he ended up getting hurt and missing the remainder of it. And I suppose it's possible you could blame this recent streak on him being hurt, because he's definitely looked a little awkward and definitely a little bit tired. But he had 9 points on 2 for 7 shooting in 22 minutes versus the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets, I believe, set or tied an NBA record for most points in a first quarter. They had 51. And the Bucks closed the gap a little bit, but ultimately because Giannis was not producing, the rest of the team didn't really produce and did not get the job done. And I want to mention that really this game, 7 field goal attempts in 22 minutes is not entirely uncharacteristic of Giannis. That math does check out, but he just was not making them, and there were some 3-point attempts, which obviously did not go in, and the other 3 shots that he missed were, I believe, shots around the rim. If I'm not mistaken, there might have been a mid-range shot in there, but really the Hornets just did a decent job of not making any obvious open lanes, so anything that Giannis would have had to do would have had to been fairly forced. And one thing I'll point to in terms of this recent struggle is that Milwaukee's offense this year is just not great. And the first and really the most significant reason as to why that would be the case, of course, is Chris Middleton, who has yet to really return to form since he has been back. In fact, it's been enough games now that I am at least somewhat concerned about what his future in the league looks like and whether or not we're going to see the Chris Middleton that we know of the past, or if Chris Middleton is just going to be like an okay role player now, because that's all he's really been for Milwaukee so far this season. Hopefully he's going to turn things around, but having Drew Holiday be your lead shot creator is just seriously not ideal. Drew Holiday is a phenomenal defender, a really good playmaker, and a capable shot creator. But I would say if a step back Drew Holiday mid-range shot is the number one thing your offense is generating, or Lord, God forbid it be a three-pointer, because he loves step back threes too, it's just not ideal, I would say. So I would say the offense was pretty stagnant, didn't do a good job of getting Giannis in positions that were beneficial or would get him any kind of easy offense, and the Hornets did a decent job of preventing the paint from just being easy pickings, which it generally is. So you got to give Charlotte credit for that. But this game, I would say, less criticism in Giannis's department. But what's weird about the Hawks game is while he had just 7 points in 35 minutes of action, which is extremely low for him. He went 3 for 10 from the field, 1 for 4 from the free throw line. He also had 18 rebounds, 10 assists, and only 1 turnover to those 10 assists. And unlike the Charlotte game, The Bucks managed to win this one. That was because Drew Holiday, after I just trash talked him, had himself a really good performance, and I think Bobby Portis did as well. Joe Ingles as well. That's the one player that stood out to me. Is when the Bucks signed Joe Ingles, I didn't think anything of it because I thought like a 36-year-old complete non-athlete by NBA standards, whose game is entirely built on like shiftiness and stuff like that, having torn, I think it was an ACL or an Achilles, one of those two. I kind of just assumed Joe Ingles that would ruin his career, that injury. But it hasn't. He's been pretty good for Milwaukee ever since he's returned from injury. So that's definitely an interesting dynamic for that team that's worth throwing out there. But as for what went wrong in this Hawks game for Giannis's scoring, I do think it was more so, and especially in the first quarter, it was more so just he didn't need to. There were a lot of instances, he finished with 10 assists, obviously, which kind of highlights this, but there were a lot of instances where Giannis just kind of existing as a threat made someone else open, and he just made the right basketball play. The amount of, I would be more concerned about this game if he had taken like 16 shots, if he had like maybe 12 points on 16 shots instead of 7 on 10. But the low amount of field goal attempts is telling me that he's probably coasting a little bit, especially given that if we go ahead and take a look at the week that he had before this, or not the week, it was probably like 2 weeks, 7 games anyways. The 7 games that he played before this, 40 points, 5 assists, 14 rebounds, shooting 56% from the field. Still terrible from 3, but he also shot 73% on 16 free throw attempts per game. So, really long streak, and again, to bring it back to the half-court offense, I really feel like Giannis is having to force things more so than normal. I made a video on the Milwaukee Bucks and how they were utilizing him early on in the season when things were going very well. Seems like they're starting to stray away from that, and once again, it's just returning to Giannis. I made the joke in the past about not Mike D'Antoni. What's the damn coach's name? Mike Budenholzer. It was a Mike. I made a joke in the past that his game plan was Giannis, go be big and go dunk. Like, that's it. That's his game plan. And that's really seemed to be what it has been lately. And in this game against the Hawks, Giannis took the more methodical approach and just tried to find the open man. And I also think he's just kind of tired of the barreling constantly through people. So I'm not too concerned about at all really what this means for Giannis long term in terms of these individual games. The bigger story and the thing that's more interesting is like we need to start having a conversation about how maybe Giannis is asked to do just a little bit too much. Because if we want to talk about teams that have championship aspirations, really an important ability for a team that has championship aspirations usually, unless it's like their first one, not dealing with multiple long postseason runs in a row. But if it's early on, this can work. But otherwise, like, you need to have some ability to coast a little bit. Like, obviously, LeBron really popularized that idea. But if you can't just kind of chill during the regular season occasionally, you have to work your ass off to lose to the Hornets and to barely beat the Hawks without Trae Young, then we're talking about much more concerning things long term than just Giannis having 2 games with less than 10 points. So, yeah, that's my thoughts. I'm more concerned about that than I am the box scores themselves. I also do want to give credit to both the Hawks and the Hornets for playing respectable defense, 2 teams that are not really known for that. But they didn't make it easy for him. And from there, I think the built-up fatigue and the fact that he did get injured and that probably affected him in some regard contributed to this. So I don't think it's a huge deal. Would be more concerned about what it means for this team and how far they can go in the postseason, because right now they cannot coast, and that's a problem. Anyways, that's it. Goodbye.